Hello, everyone. On this episode, we have Business Director Michael Muchin from Avery Dennison Medical. Really excited to have Michael on. We have a great conversation. We talk about a whole bunch of things in regards to wearables. So anything from human factors on stick-to-skin adhesives, common misconceptions that designers have when selecting adhesives, the impact of the device's shape, weight, and different substrates and how they play into the construction, the importance of the tie layer, which is kind of a undiscussed or not as much discussed layer in the construction, and also kind of how they guide designers through the early stages of the development process. So without further ado, bringing you Michael Muchin from Avery Dennison. Thanks. All right, well, welcome everyone to the next episode of the podcast. It's been a little while since we did the last podcast in person, so this is actually really cool. And we've got an in-house studio in the making, I think, with our marketing associate Nick at the helm here, trying out something new. So one of our core values is embrace the challenge, and another one of improve it. So I guess we have both of those core values going. But really happy to have Michael Muchin here, Business Director, Avery Dennison Medical. Michael and his team were here this morning, got a tour of the facility, some really good conversation. And so we decided, hey, let's record a podcast. So here we are.
Here we are.
Michael,
thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And I guess, do you want to give kind of the overview, introduce yourself?
Sure.
Avery Medical, your role, or anything else you want to share?
So as Steve said, I'm Business Director for the North American business. I've been with Avery for 5 years now, in this industry for a long time, bonding different products to the body. Avery, in what we do for over 50 years, have been bonding different medical products to the body and really deliver a customized solution to our customers that are servicing the medical industry. So from that perspective, we have a long history in doing this, and we're happy to work with our converter partners to get product out in the marketplace.
Yeah, and it was kind of fun today because we're both serving the brand owner or the design team that's launching something.
Yeah.
And in one of the applications that was brought up this morning, I didn't know the full history on that application, but it was interesting to where both of our organizations knew about it. You know, it was like, oh yeah, we're working with them too, or they've contacted us also. So it's interesting that when we're serving like those design teams, they're both reaching out obviously to the material supplier, but then at the same time they're looking for a converter too. I'm not sure who gets contacted first, or whether they're just looking for both at the same time.
Yeah, and I don't think there's not a way. There's not necessarily a way. But I do think that is a big shift that's happened in the industry in general, where you need that partnership to make this work, and you're not at arm's length. We're working collaboratively. We all know who the OEM is. We work through that OEM, and we each have a role to play in delivering product out to the marketplace. And
it sounds like there's they're getting educated by your team on like the material side, but then educated on us of what's going to work from a converting standpoint. So that is leading me to my first question, which was, what are some of the most, I guess, common misconceptions that designers have when selecting adhesives for wearables? Because they only know what they know. And I guess to make it a little bit more specific, I guess we could say a wearable where there's a device that's going to be mounted to a skin adhesive type interface, and there's going to be a device over the top of that needs to somehow bond to the patch itself, and then the patch needs to bond to the skin. Which some people might think, oh, well, that's easy, but there's a lot that goes in that, isn't there?
And you took the words right out of my mouth. That is the first reaction is, well, that's easy, and what's so complicated in doing this? I mean, adhesives have obviously been designed and tested against different materials for years, and we use that as the barometer of if we're making a product in spec. Are we bonding to stainless steel or polyethylene or a film or something that is more standard, which is exactly what skin is not. So from that perspective, finding the right adhesive that holds on with the right amount of time, removes with as minimal pain as possible, if that's needed in the application, is the challenge. And in wearable specifically, the devices are so different, and so we draw commonality in what we do, but really there's nothing that proves that the product works other than actually testing it. So we try and be directional and say, hey, this is what you're looking for, and in our past history we've seen that this works or that works, but the reality is every one of these is different, and we almost start from scratch with a bit of a head start every single time we go through this journey with somebody.
And you shared the sample kits that you handed us this morning,
Exactly.
which was really helpful with the kind of the array of the portfolio offering. Can you, I guess, maybe speak to, and especially on that presentation that you shared where there's the exploded view of the wearable?
Yeah.
Can you maybe just walk through like what is that construction made of?
Yeah, I mean, the focus is typically on the skin adhesive itself. So the product the piece of tape, if you will, that's bonding directly to the body. So we have a variety of different materials, so different backings. So you can have films or foams or non-wovens or polyurethane non-wovens. Really depends on application of what that backing is. And then we have a variety of different adhesives that have been tailored to different time horizons, I would say. So short-term, medium-term, long-term. And that's all somewhat subjective, but we certainly know that a very long-term adhesive is not really a good idea for a very short-term application. But as you can imagine, you get muddy in the middle as you've switched from one to the other. So I would say in that stack up, that is the most common, right? That's the go-to. Then we talk about tie-layer adhesives. So those would be adhesives that would bond the device on one side, to the device on one side, and to the skin adhesive on the other side. So we have a variety of different constructions for that sort of bonding, because the devices can be made out of very different materials and need different adhesives. Same with the skin layer. The top layer of the backing can be a non-woven, or it could be a film, and there's different properties that are needed. So we have that category of products. And then we also have the overpatch material. So you envision something that's going to kind of cover the entire device and kind of hold it all down potentially on the body, because some applications need that additional strength to hold on the body. And so that we've kind of tailored our offering in those three buckets, because we're trying to, we know that there's a lot of development work that starts. We want to put people in the right direction, so we have a relatively small, tailored, built-for-purpose portfolio that that we think is a good starting point, and then we customize from there as needed. Ideally, with small companies, we don't customize because the scale-up is hard, and the development is time-consuming and costly. So we've really tried to tailor that to, a one-to-many approach in this particular sector, because I think it benefits many people.
Yep.
To have that.
Lots of questions on each layer. I guess I'll start with the skin layer, because even this morning, our application engineer mentioned where someone was like, "What? The same material won't work for the hairy person, the sweaty person, and all these." Like, there isn't one size fits all. So when you talk about those human factors, like talk about that skin layer and some of the challenges on the human factor side that someone has to consider. Yeah,
I think, well, there's a few that come out. You mentioned some. I mean, just the skin itself. So are you sticking to somebody who is, an average adult like we are, or are we going on to somebody like somebody who's older or somebody who's younger, where the skin is a heck of a lot more fragile? So you have that issue that you deal with. It's just skin in its own right. Then you have the mechanics of the skin itself. Some people's skin is more oily or dry. That certainly affects the way that you bond to the body. And then you also have the hair factor, which we can't say, we can't get away from. But I think more and more the devices are being put onto the body in places that are a better surface for adhesion. So you see them on the top of the leg, the top of the arm, less on the abdomen unless it has to be because it's an irregular surface. The chest is a good bonding point, typically upper chest. So I think designers are trying, and a lot of what we're monitoring, that works for those areas. Certainly there can be more complicated and challenging areas to bond to the body. So you have that of where it is on the body, and then you have just how active is that person as well, and what are they doing during that. We have some people that are extremely active, and therefore ultimately you need a different kind of adhesive to work with those people versus people who are not active in the same way. And then I guess I would say finally, ultimately, the decisions on bonding to skin come around, you need the device to stay on the body. So first and foremost, the device doesn't work if it's not on the body. So there is a little bit of a journey that every new company to the wearable space gets. Well, how do I make the perfect adhesive? And the reality is, it really doesn't exist. And so there's trade-offs in that development process.
Yeah. On the device design side too, I mean, obviously the size, shape, weight of whatever you want
Yes,
to mount
all of that.
is a factor too,
Of course.
and maybe even it'd be good for you to take one step back to define like tack, shear, peel,
Yes.
and just from a force and
Yeah.
mechanics standpoint, how that works, and then how that parlays to a design consideration of someone who's going to say, okay, what am I going to mount on this wearable patch?
No, it's a good point. So tack and shear and peel are typical measures for any of us that are in the adhesive world to try and measure how aggressive an adhesive is. And so to your point about sticking something onto the body, if it's something is very heavy and you're going to put it on the side of the arm, that's shear forces at work there. So you need an adhesive that has really, really good shear capability, which typically leads towards a little bit of a harder adhesive or something that is not as soft. Whereas if you wanted a high tack adhesive, typically those are very soft adhesives. And so you've got those two things, forces fighting each other a little bit. And so because something that is really, really soft has great tack actually may not have the shear force, and you can actually see something slide off the arm. So as we're looking at our adhesive portfolio, we're balancing that for the customers. And when we talk about looking at the time on the body, those forces are in play. And when you also talk about the level of strength that you need to stay on the body, sometimes you need different adhesives to make that work collaboratively.
And the tie layer is something I've learned as you've been kind
Yes.
of sharing information, where I feel like it's kind of a undiscussed layer in there. Can you define
It
a
is.
tie layer and talk about the importance of the tie layer?
Sure. So if you have the skin adhesive, that is, the adhesive is facing the body, you have a substrate on top, then you have a device, and you need to put those two things together. And the tie layer, was what we call it, is an adhesive that is in between those two layers on the device. And as I mentioned earlier, we've got very different criteria for each bonding surface. So as an example, the device can be made out of a very low surface energy plastic. If it is, that's a hard surface to bond to. You need a special adhesive for that layer. And equally, the layer that is the skin adhesive is coated onto can be very different as well. So we have a variety of different double-coated products and some transfer adhesives that have been designed to fit that bill, to go in between those two. And based on the needs of the application, we have different to go with. And in fact, one of them, we have a double-coated polyurethane film because it's very conformable as well, because you have that conformability factor that comes into this as well.
Yeah.
So, once again, each one of these is different, and so going in, some devices need to be removed from the skin adhesive patch. So then, therefore, you don't want a permanent bond; you want the opposite. You want a removable. So we've got, based on application, a variety of different ways we attack.
Yeah. Highly configured.
Very
so I
much.
guess as a design team, contacts you, what type of I guess I don't want to say concierge service, but in essence, what's the journey look like from their perspective?
Yeah.
From how do you guide them through that journey of making those decisions?
Well, the start is a ton of questions. So that's the easiest way to kind of extract the data of what they're thinking. And it's a lot of what we've already covered in terms of who is it going on, how long is it on for, how active are they, that sort of profile, where's it going on the body. But it also goes down, the marketing side plays in. Does it have to be clear? Does it have to have a color? Is it a non-woven? And equally, while we obviously are a proponent of using a double-coated adhesive for the tie layer as an example, there are some companies that want to weld. So if they want to weld, let's say, to a top layer of skin, well, then there's certain materials that you have to gravitate towards. So we're asking a lot of questions to try and ferret out that information, and also helps to start that journey with the customer who thinks this is easy. So we need to get a little bit of that information. And then I think the most important part that comes next in that journey is testing. And that's not necessarily a huge clinical trial or a big test or anything like that. That's just folks in the office making some mock-up samples, putting them on their body, seeing how they work. And we actually have some information on our website to go over those early stage journey of trying to develop those wear studies, trying to isolate variables, trying to get feedback then that says, well, wait a minute, we thought we were going to go here, but that's not really where we need to be. And that is the iterative process. I think the faster we can do that together, it's critical from the tape supplier side, but then it also, the converter comes into that as well, because size, shape, liner releases, patient liners, printing, like all of that is part of that evolution as well.
Yep. Yeah, because that design engineer persona on the design team, who ultimately is accountable for design control.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, they need to create a product specifications that's clear, and then they need to verify and validate to, you know, quantitative testing, right?
Yeah.
What type of, this is my last question, by the way.
Yeah.
What type of support do you offer someone who, you know, they want to, you know, the spec's going to be developed, but then they want to test to that spec, verify and validate their design so that they can kind of get into the market?
Well, like I said, we do have some wear study protocols that we've shared with companies so that they can do that testing themselves. We also can do testing internally. So once a device has been put together, if you want to measure, let's say, the force to remove that it would take to actually remove a permanent bond of the device to the skin adhesive, as an example, we can do that sort of break apart testing to make sure that you are getting the weld and the application that you need for. But what we want to do is help that customer through that overall journey to make sure that what they have is what they need and what they've prescribed. I think that one of the tough areas of this is once it starts to get out into the market or that early stage clinical feedback, there is a typical bell curve where product stays on great for 70% of the people, and you got 15% on either end where it is way too aggressive and it falls off. And I think having the knowledge that that's typical, one, and two, that you need to come to grips with it is really not one size fits all, unfortunately. And so in a lot of cases, people err towards it sticking too much, and you actually become more aggressive because, like I said in the beginning, you need to stay on the body ultimately. So.
Right. That's all I had. Is there anything that I didn't ask that I should have asked?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we took a little journey through wearable device development from the skin adhesive side. It is, I think, my takeaways would be, for those that are listening and coming into this cold, it is a different journey for everybody who's developing, and there are unique needs. Those need to be taken into account. You're not alone in this journey because you have folks like us and folks like you that are able to help you through that journey, and that ultimately we all win when you win. So meaning we want to develop something that is built for purpose and works for your application, and that's our focus in this market. So we have a lot of information on our website, averydennisonmedical.com. Happy to look at that, and then obviously contact me anytime.
Yeah, in the show notes will have, I think we usually put stuff in the show notes.
That's great
too, so we can always do that too.
That's great.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
In person.
This was great.
In person.
Yes,
It's
happy
not
to do
two
it.
talking heads in a Microsoft Teams meeting.
That's nice
so
for a change.
It's nice to be in person with you. So I guess that's a wrap then. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.